Hey, what's up, buddy? Can you hear me? Testing, testing, testing.
Oh, I'm talking away and I was muted.
Oh,
Well, going
how you
on?
doing?
Yeah, we're like 5 or 6 minutes out, so I'm not sure if LBA is going to jump in at the last second. I'm just kind of finalizing some prep here, getting it on Twitter and stuff like that, and we
Yeah,
can get
no
going.
problem.
We can
I'm
get
sure
going
he,
in a minute.
I'm sure he'll join us in 5. He's probably just getting home and saying hi to the family and all of that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Give me 1 minute if you could.
Yeah, no, I'm cool.
So I just wanted to make sure that everybody in the chat could hear and everything was straight. I never changed the settings, so everything should always be the same. But a couple times I've done it, and all of a sudden, like nobody could hear anything, and it's like the settings change themselves or something. So I just
Yeah,
wanted
it's
to.
it's probably one of these default keyboard shortcuts that comes with certain applications. It's
Yeah.
like the old control shift if you have multiple language keyboards installed and you're not, aware of hitting it. I mean, it happens a lot with programming
Yeah.
because you have to use a lot of the different characters. And one of my sort of personal security life hacks is that I keep Russian language installed on my operating system because a lot of the Russian hackers are scared of their viruses attacking anybody in Russia or anything like that because they know they're basically going to put in Siberia.
Oh,
So
really?
a lot of their malware basically tries to check if they're on a computer with a Russian language, and then they just shut down and don't do anything.
Is that right? That's
Yeah,
good to know.
it's like
Do you speak Russian at all?
I actually did train a bit of Russian. I've had 3 Russian girlfriends, so I did like Russian stuff on Duolingo, but I'm not, I can understand certain words and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
I mean, I don't know how your girlfriends were, but my fiance, I think you know, is Portuguese.
Yeah,
And I'm Cape Verdean, which is kind of a derivative of Portuguese, but I don't really speak it that clearly.
yeah.
And I always bug her to teach me because she speaks fluent Portuguese, but
Hmm.
she and her mother can basically talk about me right in front of me without me knowing what they're saying, and they like that.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, it's kind of like, you have Spanish as a second language in the US, right?
yes.
So when I was like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old, we're not recording anything, right?
Yeah, we're live right now.
Okay, I'm not gonna tell my father's life story then.
All
Just
right, tell
suffice
me
to
about it
say, I
later.
was living with my father on Ibiza, and it was a wild time in the late 80s and stuff like that.
Yeah.
My 3 best friends were like 3 brothers from the US whose father was wanted by the CIA for cocaine trafficking. So
Oh
I
my
guess it
goodness. All
gives you
right.
an idea of what was going on. So long story short, I went to like an English Spanish Catholic school, and I actually spoke Spanish when I was a kid, and I still kind of understand some Spanish. But then think when I was like 12 or 13, my father took me to South America for 3 months. We spent like 6 weeks in Brazil or something like that.
Oh,
And they
wow.
speak Portuguese. And it
Yeah.
was like, I thought going over there is like, I understand a little bit of Spanish and all that, but Portuguese is a whole different language.
Well, not only that, but Brazilian Portuguese is a
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
different language too. It's totally different than Portuguese.
yeah.
So yeah. So my fiance works in retail,
Mhm.
and yeah, we have a large Hispanic population, and there isn't anyone else in the store who speaks anything other than English. She's the only one that speaks Portuguese. So even all the Spanish or Hispanic people, they kind of send to her, and she has a hard time. It's not the same thing. I mean, she does better than someone who speaks only English,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's close enough, but there are a lot of differences as well.
So, but maybe I should just give LBA a ping real quick to see if he fell asleep behind the wheel or something like that.
Yeah,
Otherwise, I
I was
guess we
talking
can
to him
just
not
get
that
going.
long ago. But yeah, like you said, he
He's
might be just
typically pretty punctual, like any good project manager. So I'm assuming he might just be on the way.
yeah. Yeah. I think he did tell me that he was driving when I talked to him. So let's
Maybe
hope
some
that he's
traffic.
safe. Go ahead and send him a ping, and then I guess you and I can get started like we always do, and he can jump
Yeah,
in when he
I,
gets here.
I I just pinged him so we can just get going.
All right, cool. So few things on the agenda. I'm not sure exactly what it was that if there was anything specific that you wanted to chat about. But
No,
I think that we talked about maybe starting off or talking about the upgrade, the update, whatever you want to call it, the 1.1.0, and how that's going right now.
yeah. I mean, I guess overall we can conclude that the upgrade is somewhat completed. There's still some residual issues in certain places with mobile clients that probably won't be patched for a couple of weeks or whatever it takes to get them cleared in the App Store and so on. But I mean, just before we went on this meeting, I just did a test on Terra Station. I could withdraw my rewards, I could delegate them, I could send coins to another address, and so on and so forth. So it seems like things are back to more normal on the primary layer 2 components. And I mean, the layer 1 has been sort of happily chugging along ever since we completed the upgrade a few days ago, and the consensus engine finally calculated its approximate delta and so on and started producing blocks again.
Okay. This morning we did the sprint planning review.
Yeah.
That you missed on that one,
Yeah.
but they were talking about how I guess people that were having problems, it was with kind of specific wallets, but Kepler wallet seemed to be fine. So as far as no, regardless of what wallet you're using, MetaMask or Trust Wallet or whatever, everybody should be good right now.
I mean, I can't speak for all the wallets. There's so many of them, and I mean, we only have limited resources. So by and large, we try to focus on ensuring that, the Terra Station style GUIs work, and most of the other wallets are maintained by teams who probably, also just maintain their own wallets in accordance to changes from the different networks and so on. So I think this kind of situation is just to be expected. And I think it's important that people, learn to distinguish between the actual blockchain and their wallets, because they're not like, one single system. There are different component parts in a distributed system that work together. And, if you change the engine in your car and you also have to change the gearbox, you don't do both things at the same time. First, you change maybe the engine and then you change the gearbox.
Okay.
So that's basically the process here. And I mean, we're all pretty busy because in general, the investors, they want progress and they're not always patient. So they push us on all sorts of sides, not only us, but also TFL and TCV and so on. And that sort of puts us in a situation where, sometimes we just have to tell people to be patient and try to work through the motions, because the fact is that when we change the platform itself, or the layer one, then there can be unintended consequences. We are very fortunate that we have, skilled Cosmos developers like Superman and Vin, leading the charge, and then the rest of us following along. And we've been good at sort of making, running a professional process that has, given us a high chance of success. But we have also been lucky along the way, right? I mean, with the upgrade, and the whole consensus thing, as we spoke about, when we originally talked about this, it was like, yeah, it's probably going to take like an hour. But the fact of the matter is that nobody had really done something like this in a long time in our network, right? And by a long time, I mean years. So there wasn't really a lot of clarity around the situation with, what is the state of the individual validator installations and so on. And we're still, trying to get the validators to onboard the testnet so we can actually maybe catch more of these situations in the process as we test the clients. But the situation we have right now is the situation we have, given the resources we have at our disposal. I think we have learned a few things from the 110 upgrade in terms of, strengthening communication channels. I think if anything good came out of this is, a better understanding between the TFL guys, or the TFL developers, and the layer one developers in terms of what people are capable of and what we do. We have, gotten some stronger communication ties, in the sense that Jared has joined our internal Slack channel and pulled his developers in. So we have a direct communications channel in the future. And that will obviously make it easier for us to coordinate around pull requests, so we don't end up in a situation where we kind of did a pull request a week ago and then they've been too busy with other stuff, so maybe they didn't get around to commenting on it or whatever. And these things just kind of happen when you're working in a decentralized open source environment. It's kind of the price you pay when you want the kind of resilience that comes with being decentralized, right?
Yeah. LuncBurnArmy, LuncArmy, welcome.
Hey, Steve.
We heard you.
Hey guys.
What's going on, brother?
Sorry, I apologize. I was in another meeting until just a few minutes ago, and it went over by a few minutes, so I had to just take a couple minutes off to join.
Yeah, but, no worries. No worries. Also, welcome to everybody who's in the chat right now. I see all you guys, Travis, Isis, Lulian, and I know that there are a lot of other people who are watching right now who maybe aren't necessarily chatting, but I thank you everybody for being here. Just to remind you, and poor holder, remind everybody as they come in, my mod, hit the like button and share it so that we can get it out and let everybody know that we're here. Something you just said a minute ago, Zaradar, I kind of want to chat about, because we talked about it briefly before, but I think maybe this is information that we should probably get out. And we're talking about the validators and being on the test net and the benefit that would be in being able to basically work things out on a more full scale before they go live. How easy is that to get done? Is that up to the validators? Is it?
Well, I mean, I can certainly, this is something that Tobias and I were talking about earlier today, and that, we've really, it's in a best case scenario, when you do an upgrade, you want to have as much of a replica of what we call the production environment, which is our main net. And you want to have the test environment be as close to a duplicate of that as you can make it. And right now, the challenge is that our validator set, the validators do not have, it's not currently configured where we have all of the test net populated with the full validator set. And what that would let us do, if we had, let's say we had all 130 validators in there, it would add a little bit more time to our test cycle But what we would do is we would do a dress rehearsal for the upgrade, where we would do the exact same upgrade, but we would do it on the test net. And we would say, okay, here our test upgrade is such and such day at such and such time. And okay, validators, we're going to run the upgrade. And what you hope is, it doesn't happen every time, but what you hope by doing that is that you'll catch something that might have happened in the real live environment. And that's the purpose of testing that way.
What are the difficulties of getting all 130 valid? I mean, are there time constraints? Are there financial concerns? I mean, how easy is it?
It's like the cost of the hardware. It's the maintenance, it's the extra work that the validator would have to maintain it. Now, you don't need as robust of hardware for the testnet because the transaction volume's quite a bit less. So you don't need the same level of hardware, but you still need, another machine, or, if some people have really robust infrastructure, they need resources, right? So you need additional, like you need to spin up a VM, or if you're going to use it, so there's cost, or there's cost associated for sure.
So basically, roughly speaking, it would bump their cost by like 30. And that's obviously something that cuts into their business, right? So that's really the thing that we're going to have to look at. I mean, we can simulate to a certain point, or we could get everybody to embrace containerization, because the root cause of this issue is really that in the old days, before we had what we called software containers, we had to spend a lot of time prepping the servers that we deployed our software on. And we had a process where you would write a document. I used to work in a bank for 3 years. Every time we had to do a release, I had to write a 10-page document that clearly specified everything I expected for the server that my software had to run with. It identified all potential error states that my software could go into. And then only then would they allow the software to be released, right? That was a very time and resource consuming process, but this was a necessity because certain dependencies like this libwasm.so that affected a few of the validators is like a root dependency at the OS level. So it's not something that we bring in with our client. It's something that they have to install. If they were to use containers, then we could basically prep a container that has all the, let's call them root dependencies people know or need, and we could guarantee that our software would work anywhere. That's why all major enterprises today use containers, because it does away with what we call the "it worked on my machine" problem, right? So inherently, we ran into a lot of "it worked on my machine" problems because we're running on a lot of bare metal stuff, and that's okay. I mean, there's also benefits of bare metal. It's not like I'm gonna, make it look like a bad thing. But the bottom line is that I think everybody learned a lesson about, what it takes to do an upgrade of this type, what it means to do a hard fork, how to reset consensus, which validator configuration files needs to be flushed, and so on. And I mean, these are old lessons that we dug up at 8 o'clock a.m. in the morning, my time, from traversing through old Cosmos issues from 2016 or 2018, and then we just pieced sort of the puzzle back together. We looked at the state of the network and we're like, okay, this is clearly just the consensus rebooting, and the delta calculation is going to take longer than we expected because we don't know the physical distribution of all the validators. So it's very hard for us to gauge how long a consensus upgrade will take. But just to give you a comparison, most centralized consensus engines, which I've worked with Raft Quorum since 2015, they typically have like 3 to maybe 9 or 13 servers. We have 130, and for each additional member you put into Parliament, you have this additional risk that somebody's going to spend a lot of time on the floor just talking or whatever. That makes consensus slower, and overall it takes longer to produce blocks.
Okay.
I think just to add to that, one of the things that we really learned was that a couple of validators had rebooted partway through as well, just because they thought that there was something incorrect happening. And then we eventually, at part of it, we second guessed like our deployment, and we thought, oh my gosh, did we do something wrong? But really what it was that we were only like 1% away. We were just so close that had one or two more validators with enough voting power come online, we would have been done the whole upgrade within, that very, very small short window. So
yeah, probably within the first hour, yeah. But
it would have
again,
been within the first hour. So a good lesson learned there is like, we're going to have to find a way the next time we do this to really get we communicate with the validators ahead of time and so on and so forth, but we're going to have to get a time commitment, whether it's sending out a meeting invite or something to that effect, where it's like, okay, the upgrade is happening on this day and time. Have you confirmed you're going to be there at exactly this day and time at the start to do your upgrade?
Kind of like when we did the staking and governance thing, where we had, I think, 3 people constantly running dialogues with the validators. But again, this was very time consuming, right? People literally spent weeks coordinating with them all the time. And that's just something that we have to try to keep in mind. But I think another thing to also bear in mind here is that during this sort of upgrade, we also had the opportunity to basically realign people's address books. And that means that hopefully there will be less discovery going on the next time we do an upgrade, which means that sort of realigning consensus should not take as long.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was all in all, it was a positive overall outcome. With you learned some great lessons along the way, but it was a big upgrade to do.
So watching it, I'll tell you, it was like this, right? Everybody knows, because I've said it a million times, I'm in construction, right? So very often we'll go and we're tearing up a street, we're doing the sewerage, or we're doing, new water services or whatever, right? And if you look at it, the first couple of days that we're there, it looks like we're just making holes everywhere, like we're just making a mess, right? And generally, some of the residents in the area, whatever, they're concerned because they feel like we're just making a mess that's never going to really come and be anything, right? And then one day they wake up and we actually get to the point where all of a sudden it looks like a street again, and everything is completed, everything's done. It looks like chaos to someone who doesn't really understand what's going on and understand the process, but ultimately it all comes together. And for me, when I was watching it, I felt like one of those residents watching me dig holes. I'm like, this is craziness, right? I had no idea what was going on. It seemed like everybody was just freaking out.
But I think you're correct. From the outside, it does look chaotic.
Yeah.
I think that the thing here is that we have a few seniors in our group, like Superman and myself. And we were pretty calm throughout the process because this was not really our first rodeo. But we do also understand that, building something like a website, that's a centralized solution, right? You have a Node.js server, you have some sort of front-end stuff. That's fairly easy to reason about what the outcomes are. But one of the reasons why hyper-efficient companies like SpaceX succeed is because their software systems are always in sort of a chaotic state where they don't truly know what they're doing at any given point in time. It's kind of like the story, I think, I don't know if I told you about how they train, AI bots. They have basically like a teacher bot, and then they have an exam bot. And the teacher bot doesn't know if the bots that it teaches actually learn anything. And the exam bot doesn't know if they've learned anything. It can only just test their scores. And then over millions of generations, the teacher bot happens to, accidentally create a bot that passes the exam with a very high score. And then it becomes very good at, identifying the pictures of bees or something like that. And in blockchains, it's very much the same. We call this emergent behavior. It's like we change a lot of different things in the engine at the same time, but some things don't manifest until a certain point in time. and that means that we use a lot of like telemetry systems. We have lots of logging and observation and stuff like that typically, because we're used to having to monitor this chaotic state and look for the anomalies and gauge whether or not these anomalies are, bugs or just, blips or whatever it is.
All right. I just want to let the people know in the chat. I'm noticing something. Generally, there is like at least a 30-second, sometimes a 45-second delay. I'm noting because I'm watching both screens, and I'm watching my live, and I'm watching what actually you guys are seeing on YouTube, and I feel like it's like 5 minutes behind. It's crazy. I don't know why so much of a delay right now, but if it seems like I'm not getting right to your question, your comment, or whatever, and it's taking forever, you got to be patient, because for some reason there's just a ridiculous delay right now. For you guys, just a couple comments. Lulian says, because of the delay, this might be what we already talked about, but maybe a Docker prepared package will be much better. Container is a good option also. I'm sure you guys know what he's talking about. I have no idea.
Yeah, no, he does. So, I mean, the repo also already comes with the Docker file. The validators could just choose to build that, and they wouldn't have to worry too much about the core OS dependencies. They would only really have to worry about the configuration. But I mean, I didn't really spend more than 3-4 days coding it, but back last summer, I built this Terra operator thing, and that's basically the next level up from containers. This provides an out-of-the-box, what you call Kubernetes operator, which would basically allow people to deploy a full validator setup with relayers and FCDs and whatnot, with 3 or 4 configuration files consisting of 10 to 20 lines of stuff. And then obviously they would have to read through some guidelines and so on, but that would provide an even more out of the box turnkey solution. But this is a maturity thing that we have to work towards. But as Lulian pointed out, I've very much been, pro containers, because my personal company has been a Docker partner since 2015, which means I've been working with containers for close to a decade. And then I understand the values of containers. The cloud is built on containers. All enterprise software today is built on containers. We just have to teach our validators that they have to also embrace this. And then we have to provide them with a path to setting up something that is secure to the level where they can, trust to use it with their private key and stuff like that.
Okay. Travis says, even though there was a bit of a hiccup during upgrade, congrats to the L1 task force team. Job well done. And then Jay, who I believe is Jared, is in the chat, and he says you can just use Cosmo Visor. You don't need Docker.
Yeah, well, I totally understand that. I was the one developer on our team who voted for looking at Cosmos Visor in this sprint. Everybody else voted against it because they don't feel it's stable enough. So I'm totally with Jared on this. It's also something we're looking at. For me, the operator plays a slightly different role. It's about making validator as a service something you can do at home. So you can have the benefit of running your own server with the simplicity of an orchestrated installation and management process.
Okay. Thanks guys for your comments in the chat. I appreciate it. Keep them coming, because I talk to these guys about the things that I understand, but I love that people in my chat really get this even more than I do. So it brings up some really good questions. All right. Moving forward, right? Ultimately, I guess we're looking forward to the WASM upgrade, but before we get to that, there's a bunch of other updates that need to be done before we get there, and we have we talked about this morning in the preview or the review meeting, some dates or some prospective dates for getting some of these things done. And I guess the next to come up is the version 2. Yeah.
So 2.0.0 is,
yeah, go ahead.
So 2.0.0 is going to contain the Tendermint upgrade and the Cosmos SDK upgrade. So you're right that is coming first, and then following that, a few weeks after, we'll want to do the WASM upgrade. So I think we got a lot of positive outcomes from this. We've got a lot of good lessons learned that we can apply optimizing our next upgrade. Like Tobias said, we've got enhanced, channels of communication that we'll make sure that we utilize, and we'll apply the lessons learned, and next upgrade, looking forward to it. So,
Right. Jared also just came in with almost every other chain uses it. So the validators are well versed in it. It's easier than a new thing for them to learn, which Cosmos, SDK, IBC versions are you upgrading to?
Can we just have Jared join us? I mean,
that's
want
up
to
to you
join us,
guys.
buddy?
Yeah,
I'm cool. Bring him on if he wants to join us.
Yeah, sure.
Jared, I'm going to send you. I'm going to send you an invite in our TG chat. You're just going to give me a second to bring it back up again. Give me 1 second. Let me just get there. And if you want to jump in, you can. If you don't have time, that's fine. We understand. But give me a second.
I mean, in general, we are looking at learning from the other chains, and I think he's totally right. I think our concern is mainly just doing things in certain steps while we grow and learn as a team. You have to remember that at least half of the layer 1 team were not Cosmos developers before May last year. And while people like Till and myself and Ed has learned a lot since then, we still have more to learn. And I think that's also the cool thing about being in the Cosmos. There's so many, bright, gifted people here that I'm really looking forward to the next bull market, because obviously during a bear market, everybody is a bit, edgy or whatever. But I think the Cosmos as a universe has probably one of the brightest futures in blockchain when I look at it moving forward. And I've sort of been here since 2015, and that's why I invested in Terra back when it was like down to $1 something with the Wall Street's bet crowd. This is why I decided to basically embrace the technology, because I felt like it was a beautiful code base, and I've just been on a quest to meet more of these great talented people in the Cosmos, because I believe the Cosmos can be like the base layer for decentralized cloud computing in the future, especially looking at IBC, if we can get that turned into a standard and stuff like that.
Jared, welcome to DJ Trev Market Talk. We've talked a couple times on Telegram, maybe twice, and it's a pleasure to meet you. I appreciate everything that you've been doing to help out with our chain. And I'm glad that you have your camera on. Zaradar used to turn his camera on too all the time, but all of a sudden he got shy on me.
I'm walking around in my bathrobe. I wouldn't look pretty in a camera right now. So you'll have to make do with Jared.
It's funny. I've got the same hairstyle as you, DJ Trev.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I do. So
like a little ball guy convention.
I think we would all we all have the same hairstyle. So
we can be like the friars of Terra or something like that. Yeah,
exactly.
Jared, what's going on, my friend?
Well, hey, I had a quick comment on the Cosmovisor bit, and then a quick question on the upgrades. So on the Cosmovisor, I fought it a little bit too, for the same reason. It's just it's just a little bit newer. But people have been using it almost a year now. I would give it a shot. A lot of validators, especially if they work interchain, they use it to help them manage the various chains.
Yeah.
And that software upgrade proposal is really nice for them. It kind of automatically alerts them, and then lets them kind of automatically download that binary. Yeah. It's something to consider.
I spent quite a lot of time the last few weeks looking at it, and I think it looks really promising from the perspective of automating upgrades, right? Because that improves security, it reduces maintenance, and also improves our productivity. I think Vin and Ironman's main concerns were it was still not stable enough. And that's why we just opted to not bring it into this sort of quarter. But I think it's something we're definitely going to be looking at the next quarter if we can get the funding for it.
Yeah. What do you mean bring it in? Is it? It's an external software, right? So like,
no, I mean bring it in the sense that I'm trying to teach the L1 team to be like a group of contractors who does what we have been scoped to do within the agreement we do with governance, right? So right now we have a certain set of goals. We call them in scope issues. And these issues are sort of our primary goals. And then when we're done with that, we can bring in stretch goals, and that could be something like Cosmos Visor. So when I say bring it in, it's more just like a backlog management thing.
Yeah, it's just like it's when can we implement it, with all of the other, I'm sure you deal with this every day too, Jared, right? You have 10 different priorities, and a guy like me shows up and says, hey, I want to introduce Cosmo Visor. Can we sneak it in somewhere? And then the guys will say to me, okay, sure, but what do you want me to, do you want to change any of the deployment date? So anyway, I think to Tobias's point, we'll probably be looking at implementing that in the next quarter, hopefully. And it sounds like a really beneficial feature in terms of automating the deployments and so on and so forth.
I guess it's been a minute since we integrated, but I think it's just something the validators download. Like I don't think it requires any like work.
I think the problem from what I read is you have to basically package all of the binaries together. So I think it's more about preparing the Cosmo Visor bundle, if we want to call it that. And we just want to make sure that we do it in a proper way. And I think this is something that I would like to first test on a fully operational test net. So I think our priority right now is getting everybody on the test net so we can start doing that. And then once that is done, we will set up another experimental network, which will basically become part of our continuous delivery flow, where we will automatically just always patch the network with the latest pull request that goes into our main line. So people can also test with, future features, because we've embrace this semantic branching model, where our main line is always the next future major version, and then we have separate sort of release version branches. So our idea is to say, release versions, they go into mainnet, testnet, tests the pre-releases, and the experimental network just gets the last pull request to main, which is the future next major upgrade.
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't realize that's a necessity. So yeah, if that's not happening, then
yeah, I mean, and that's also what makes testing so hard for us right now, because we actually did a lot of testing ourselves and everything looked kosher, but seeing how we don't have Cosmo Visor, we don't have containers, there's a lot of uncertainty around how the individual, hosts actually look. And we've seen that, for instance, the old Terra Classic or Terra D basically doesn't like, Go 119. Iron Man spent 3 days, testing back and forth until we had a chat. And it's like, maybe it's a sort of indirect dependency. And then we found out that going from 118 to 119 basically just made the client non-deterministic. So these are also reasons why we have embraced his sort of mantra of saying, if it's not broken, maybe don't fix it, and do small incremental updates.
I think perhaps the second question is relevant then. What and I'm sorry, I don't know, what's the current Cosmos SDK version, and what are you looking to upgrade to next?
Right now we're on 0.44.8, which is really annoying because we can't use Ignite CLI. There's a lot of productivity features we can't use. We're targeting 0.45.12 because that will come with IBC Go 4.3 and support for Ignite CLI, which will make us a lot more productive from an implementation perspective. And then we decided to basically shift the WASM upgrade to the following release, which will then be 2.1.0, because we want to revert to the canonical XWASM module, because I feel it's too much work for us to support a custom virtual machine. I really respect the work that TFL did because it was before VASMD even existed. But I think looking at consistency across the entire Cosmos, we would be better off embracing the canonical VASMD implementation and Cosm V or Cosmos VASM engine. So that'll be the next step. And here we obviously have the benefit of being able to mimic what you guys did with the migration on V2. So we can, to some extent, follow those guidelines, with the exceptions that we still have, obviously, the treasury and the market module.
And then do you know what version of IBC you're targeting?
Yeah, 4.3. Right now we're on 1.3.1. Then I think 2.0 will bump us to 3.4, because that was part of what we did back in October when we first tested out this upgrade path. And then we might end up at 4.3 before we actually are done with the 2.0 release. Otherwise, that'll be in when we are with the 2.1.
Yeah.
The Tendermint 3426, right?
Yeah, 3426. I ported over Yonsuk's priority thing, and quite frankly, I think so. I know Tendermint implemented a priority weighing mechanism, but that still leaves room for somebody to basically just max out the priority and then just compete with an oracle, unless you sort of artificially change the LCD layer to only allow int32 or something like that. So I actually think Yunsuk's proposal should be merged into the canonical Tendermint and sit next to the weighing prioritization. So you have both a Boolean flag and a weighing mechanism, because then you have like a tiebreaker that solves the issue of two equal weights, even though you know that one TX type inherently is more important than the other. But I'm not privy to these, circles yet. I don't talk with these people. So this is just obviously my own view on it, having looked at the code for a little over a year.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. On the SDK and IBC versions, I understand the desire to use something that's been in production longer. We are looking at IBC 6 and 0.46 for Phoenix, respectively. I might just at least encourage IBC 6 because it enables interchain accounts.
Okay.
Which might solve some of the I'm hoping that'll solve some of the interchain swap issues, or maybe intricacies that are happening.
We'll definitely look into that. Do you know which version of Cosmos SDK it requires?
So I think it does require 46, and we're making the jump to 46 because the Alliance module will require it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know how deep you are into 45 and point.
No, I mean we've adopted the changes we need to 45, but again, this is all about Yunsuk's Oracle fix, and I did the work myself. It's not a lot of work. We could bring it over to 46. I actually tried patching it on, so I think it was 47 at some point, just for the hell of it. I think this is more just about getting consensus within the L1 team, making sure that our senior Cosmos guys are comfortable with doing that. But by and large, my goal has always been to get us to parity with Cosmos, and we're looking at also pivoting over to Comet BFT. So I'm not going to say Tendermint. I would rather say, getting to parity with Cosmos and then embracing Tendermint until the point we feel comfortable swapping over to Comet BFT.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we have an opportunity in the bear market to I don't know, maybe accept a slight risk with the 0.46 with Cosmos SDK 0.46 and IBC 6. Even though I agree that interchain accounts isn't as fleshed out as I'd like it to be, and gRPC I think kind of sucks. But it might be worth engaging in that environment, where Juno has already done it, Mars has done it, Osmosis is doing it, so that we're kind of able to work as a multi-chain community and solving.
No, I totally agree on that. And then this is also why I would like to have some sort of, bi-weekly or monthly meeting where people could just get together and talk about the things. Because, recently Reese was appointed as lead developer for Juno, and I had the pleasure of working with him, right? He's a really great kid. And he helped us bring over the fee sharing stuff to our repo for our next major upgrade. So, there's much more power in all of us working together. And again, I understand that, you know, when you work in a decentralized space, it's confusing. There's lots of misunderstanding. And this is why you just need to do what we did today, which is just establish these lines of communication where we can sort of talk in a peaceful way about the different things that we think can help the overall community. Because as I've told a lot of people, I think the notion that that Cosmos is like Highlander, where one chain will conquer all, doesn't make any sense, because the architecture doesn't support that, right? You can build a lot of small, very focused, let's call them application servers, that can basically do different things, and then they use IBC to communicate, right? And this is what makes it well suited for decentralized SaaS architectures and decentralized cloud architectures and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm glad I was able to work all that out for you guys.
Yeah, you're like, that's why I keep calling you Dr. Phil, right? How many times have I told you that you're the Dr. Phil of this shit?
No, yeah, that's all you. That's all you, both of you. I appreciate you jumping in, Jared. That was awesome, because we had talked about it, and then we weren't sure we were going to do it right now, and then maybe some other time, but that worked out great. So
no, it's great for sure. And I mean, at the end of the day, we're all just trying to help the community and try to help revitalize the blockchain. And I think that there's a great opportunity for interoperability within the Cosmos ecosystem. So all of those things are beneficial, and I think we're just going to continue to optimize and make improvements to our processes, and we all work together, we can do great things. So I think that's the goal of it, and that's what's great, Trev. I think you deserve a lot of credit for holding these conversations. They're a lot of fun to have. I've been in technology a long time, and sometimes listen, it can be challenging to keep track of all the versions, and technology like this is very complex for sure, and you need a lot of smart people, and even the smartest person in the room can learn from somebody else. So it's always good to get everybody together.
Yeah, I love having you guys together. I really do, because I'm amazed at actually how much of it sinks in. Like I'm hearing all these words that like I said before, I know are English words, but I don't necessarily know what they mean. But then the next time I hear you guys talking about it, all of a sudden it clicks, and I'm like, okay, I get that. I understand what that is. So yeah, it's a pleasure to me to have you guys come on and just listen to you talk your lingo. And I'm catching on. I feel like I can pretty much take Zaradar's job maybe in a couple months.
Oh, yeah, that was so nice. Then I can go on vacation.
Hey, I didn't realize that testnet was kind of in that state for y'all. If I may for a moment, I ran into some similar issues when I started. We didn't have, we had a very poor participation in seed nodes and in testnet. At the time, we were able to incentivize that with delegations. So we went from like 20 or 30 participants in the testnet to over 100, and from maybe like 2 or 3 persistent peers available to I think it was over 150 in the course of like a month, just by like incentivizing people. I think the equivalent was like I don't know, I think it was like the equivalent of like a couple $100 a month. But a lot of the validators are open to that sort of thing. You could also, so we don't have to have any tokens to incentivize people with on Phoenix. So we just run testnet nodes. And it's a lot more cost effective.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I ran a full AVS setup for DFDS before I joined this show with 40 feature teams and stuff like that. So there's definitely some economics of scale if you centralize your test environments. I think what we're hoping to do is say we have a lot of, let's call them kindred spirits, fire souls, whatever, in the community. And if we can create something like the Terra operator, and we can sufficiently document it and teach them how to use it, then I think maybe we can do like a SETI at home style thing where people will simply just install the Terra operator, Docker for Windows, and just have it run in the background. And yeah, it'll suck up a bit of resources, but in general, it'll probably be okay. So I think that's what I'm hoping to maybe do. And then obviously we will make sure that there is like a baseline of maybe 3-4 persistent nodes running in the background. But I also know that all nodes are also working on some sort of beefed up setup and so on. And I think in general, a lot of people have also learned from this update, especially in the validator set, that they also have a responsibility. And I think that, hopefully they will, just come on with nodes themselves, because it will also guarantee their investment. Because by and large, I think people who are running validators on Terra Classic are probably not making a lot of money, which means that for them, this is most likely a long-term investment. And if that's the case, then they can just factor in the test node as a cost of doing business if their sort of calculus, mandates that if they do this for 10 years, then we'll make this amount of profit or whatever.
Makes sense. And then, so where the real cost came in for us is in running all the other things in testnet. So basically running like a duplicate series of infrastructure and a duplicate series of applications. Yeah, that's where like the real cost comes in for us.
Oh, for sure. And then, I mean, we're going to be running our setup on EKS with spot instances to get sort of the best possible cost model. Then we're going to use something called crossplane to allow us to do infrastructure as code, so we can do less sort of manual management and use reconciliation loops in Kubernetes to synchronize our cloud and start using Terraform and stuff like this. But we will have a certain limit, just like you guys do, due to sort of the limited budget. But in a way, I also think that's what makes it kind of fun, right? I mean, I've been looking at crypto blockchain teams for the last 8 years with hundreds of millions of dollars. And I mean, they've accomplished a lot, but I mean, if we can accomplish what we're doing in V1 and V2 with the current budgets that we have, then we can accomplish a hell of a lot more if we have larger budgets. So maybe there's a certain value in having this sort of lean, model where you have to focus on the quick wins. And this is also what I try to sort of teach my L1 team, is say, I understand that we can sit down and think about how to do decentralized LCD on the blockchain itself and build that for, over a year. But let's do a lot of quick wins, because that provides real value right now. And that's sort of the balance that we have to try to strike sometimes.
Yeah. So Jared, how much did you guys pay each validator for an incentive program? Like, do you recall what it was monthly? Like, per
the
validation
was about at the time it was about 1 million Luna. Yeah, and so when it started, it was like 500 to 1,000, and then of course Luna like mooned through that process, and it was like a lot more. And then we considered scaling that program back, and then we scaled it back a bit, and and things continued there. But yeah, at the start it was only like $500, and they did all that stuff because it was enough to cover the machine. And that's like the main problem, is they're like, well, if someone paid for this machine, I would do it.
Right.
We'll do that.
Oh, it's a great suggestion, because I mean, even if we did, something small, like if you did $500 for it, and it covered a cost of a piece of the machine. I really like that. I think any incentive programs that we can think of like that are good ones. That can engage the community, and good suggestions anyway, because I'd really like to see a more robust test net for subsequent upgrades. I don't know if we'll get there for 2.0.0, because that's going to be later this month, but it would be nice if we can get there for
I think for the VASM upgrade, it would be very nice to have something like this in place.
Yeah.
You may be able to get away with like 200 to 300 too, because you don't need. I think we overpaid. Like I think you only need like in some cases on testnet, you can get away with like the AWS free machine.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like you don't
exactly.
need a lot of
Exactly.
capacity
That's
for
what I was
sure.
telling Tobias. Like,
Yeah.
you don't need 16 gigs of
But
RAM. You
I
need like
think
4.
I think it would make a lot of sense for us to sort of take Jared's idea and include it in our budget proposal for Q2, because
Oh,
I mean, at the end of the day, it's 130 validators times $300. I mean, we're still, not a $1 billion blockchain anymore, but we're still a valuable blockchain.
mhm.
So by and large, I think, this is an expense that we should be able to find a way to cover from the community pool, and then use that money to incentivize the validators to spin up the extra nodes until, maybe they just decide to do it on their own because there's no money or whatever. I don't know.
And then just for like reference, the infrastructure for like the testnet on Pisco costs us roughly like 5,000. So that's running a duplicate of FCD, LCD, RPCs,
Yeah.
Mantlement. So those are kind of like 4 core services that, and we use EKS for those. And so if you can use that as a frame of reference.
Oh, we would love to do that. But
Yeah,
I guess, are you the guy who does most of the cloud engineering stuff?
Negative. But he's in
Okay.
the Slack channel with you.
Okay, great. Then I'll have a chat with him.
And then to your point, I think that's about 1, 2, 3, like 6 times cheaper than running it in like ECS.
Yeah, for sure.
It's wild.
yeah. One of the challenges that we've got, I was just looking at that $30,000 incentive. Those, like, everything, it all seems to come from blockchain volume. The more volume we get, the more we'll have. Like, you guys have a little bit more, I think, in your community pool. We've got to find a way that the community pool can sustain the development needed for the upgrades, but can also sustain, those types of incentive programs that you mentioned, because I think that's a really important part of growing the ecosystem. So hopefully, as we see economic activity pick up and hopefully we get into some better economic times in terms of the market, then all those things become a little easier. I think when you can say, hey, validators, we're going to do this awesome incentive program, and if you join, you get $300 a month for doing so. I mean, that is a win-win-win for everybody. Similarly, if you have funding and you can say to DApps, hey, if you've got a great idea for a DApp, we're going to give you some funding from the community pool, things like that. So yeah, it's hopefully we see some more volume over the coming weeks and months. But got to get the chain to parity so we can,
I have bad news for you, Steve. What developers do rarely have anything to do with price action. That's why we have to just ignore the price. But
yeah, you're right.
I think what the markets are currently waiting for is the whole rates for longer stuff. Once the Fed comes in with the next hike and the market figures out if inflation is going to keep going up, or if this bump up was just like, a step on the road down, then I think, crypto will pick up. I think for once, maybe Kramer was actually right when he said that this was just a fake out. And I think we are in the early innings of a new bull market.
That'd be great. I'm imagining any validators that are listening to this probably wish Jared stopped at 500 and dropped it down to 2 or 3. I just want to.
Would they be happy with 50?
see how far we can get them down. I want to go back real quick just to the chat, and Lulian a while ago now, he was agreeing with you guys. Jared, just so you know, Lulian is a friend of mine. He's an L1 developer. He says, Jared is right. Cosmovisor is a much better option since it is part of Cosmos SDK. Monorepo and validators are used to it. Johnny is a member of our COC as well, and he says the L1 TF did a great job. He's being a smart ass and asking when we're going to get to $1.
Whenever he starts buying.
Yeah, right. Put it all back on him. That's exactly what we should do. Dominium. Great to see Jared joining us here discussing. We are stronger together, guys. I agree with that. It's really good to see the interchain cooperation that, a lot of, like, you guys joined some special secret decoder group today together, right? And we don't get to see that kind of stuff, right? So to have you on and kind of out in public, so we can kind of get a glimpse of what goes on as far as the cooperation, that's awesome. And I really appreciate it.
I mean, Trev, you are technically welcome in our Slack channel as a member of the series.
Well, nobody invited me.
Oh yeah, so I have to invite you now.
No,
You typically just ask for stuff.
Let me tell you, and Jared, I didn't even know about this thing until Jared mentioned it to me earlier. So
that's how much we appreciate our common silence. I mean, the Slack channel is our Zen garden. That's where we go to focus on the tech stuff.
Oh, so yeah, you don't want me in there if it's just Zen garden. Thank you guys for all your hard work, and you're all amazing. I agree with you, Paul. Share the stream. Oh, that was me. When Lunk acceptable for child support payments and strippers. I'm sorry. I got halfway into that and then realized what it was.
I've heard that question a few times. So I guess again, when Johnny starts buying.
Yeah, no kidding. All right. So just kind of to reiterate, and some of this, after this conversation, some of this may actually change, but we're looking at the 2.0 end of this month, right? IBC Go to 4.3, Cosmo SDK to 45.12. Again, these things might change now, right? Tendermint 34.26, then the 2.1, and then we get to the WASM stuff. I think you guys were talking about maybe the middle of April as a target date, but maybe that's getting pushed a little bit, possibly.
No, I
think we're still on target for that. I think our main concern about the 2.1 upgrade is actually not the actual coding, but rather the support work, right? Because we're going to have to deal with a lot of zombie contracts. We're going to have to deal with a lot of actual contracts. We're going to have to make sure that these teams, they have the necessary support that they need in order to do their upgrades. I mean, it's not like it's a massive thing upgrading your cargo manifest, but there's also going to be some breakage in the Cosmos layer, or not breakage, but new functionality and maybe some added parameters to certain functions and so on. So overall, we just want to make sure that we reserve sufficient time to be available. So kind of like with the upgrade, I think we reserved, most of the week to just be on call. We're going to sort of do the same thing when we do the 2.1.
Okay. And this was a question that had actually come up in a Twitter space, and I talked to Zaradar about it, but we'll just let everybody know now. All of these updates, everything here is a chain halting kind of event.
Yeah, I mean, that's the new normal. As I've spoken about in the past, I always preferred getting to a model where we do hard forks all the time, because these chain guards, as we call them, they create cyclomatic complexity in our code, which makes the different outcomes of the code harder to reason about. So by and large, doing this, we'll have to do a lot less if chain ID equals that and block height equals this, do something, right? And that's just going to make the code more maintainable. It's going to make the upgrades easier. And it's also going to make everything a lot more deterministic.
All right. Georgie says he joined a little late, but he wanted to congratulate the L1 team on the successful update, and also wanted to thank Jared from TFL, Jared and TFL, Thank you for the hard work. There should be no Lunk versus Luna. No, I mean, there shouldn't be. That would be awesome if everybody can just
I mean, as I've
get
stated a few
along.
times, I think Long can never become a store of value. There's simply too many tokens, but that's okay because I want to pivot Terra Classic to becoming like the Swift layer for the machine-to-machine economy. Whereas Luna can probably more become a store of value because it has less supply. And that's why I think these two sister moons can grow well together. And I think, you know, we're in the early innings of this. And if we can stay respectful and work together, there's 22 something thousand other blockchains out there that we can compete with. So why should we compete with one another?
Yeah, good point. I figured Lulian would be sleeping by now because I know he's in another part of the world. He's like 6 hours ahead, but then again, so were you, Zaradar, right?
Yeah, I'm in Europe, so yeah.
It's going to be after midnight, right? Like pushing 1 o'clock or something where you are?
Yeah, 1 o'clock.
Yeah, whatever. You don't need to sleep. All
I'm
right.
used to this. I mean, half of my team is in Asia and the other half of my team is in the US. So most of the time, you know, I'm like a soldier. I sleep when I have time.
Yeah, I hear you. So Lulian says, he says, I would do the nuclear upgrade to get rid of ghosts from the blockchain, just his opinion. I mean, how do you guys feel about that?
I love
We
him.
assessed
That's all
it.
I can say. Sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
We assessed it. The broad consensus was that no, you know, there's too many. You would have to have everybody completely, entirely rewrite all of the smart contracts. So it's not the desirable approach. So you know, we a few weeks back I posted that options analysis where we went through all the different choices and it outlines why we landed on the upgrade path that we did.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the overall, I guess, consensus, but there were other opinions.
But there is still a path for us to do both, right? Because we could, if we could identify the zombie contracts, we could write the upgrade handler to basically just remove them from the store. And that would clean that VASM code out of the VASM module itself. But that's obviously going to take more work, right? But I think long term, one of the reasons why I want to build the Terra operators, because I've been studying VASM for a decade, and I believe we can offload Cosmos VASM to layer 2 and adopt a SegWit model. When we do that, we're going to nuke everything on chain anyways. But the long and the short of it is, I think we have to be very careful in doing this. So I think this work starts with identifying the zombie contracts, so we have a clear understanding of which contracts are really just running because they still have fees for gas. And then we formulate a strategy to do triage to remove them in whatever, you know, coming upgrade where it's convenient. And that leaves us with a better view of what the actual amount of DApps are on chain. And then we can sort of just work from there.
all right.
One question I've got for you, Jared, how is one of the videos that I've shared a lot, you did a video a while back on YouTube where you were kind of walking through some of the features of Station. And I've shared that around, you know, the community and with other folks. I guess, are you guys still looking to implement some of those more exciting features in Station?
Yeah, for sure. Talking about like the interchain swaps and things like that.
Interchain swaps, some of the spot type charts that you were showing, and the on-ramp stuff and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So in the background on that, we're using TFM and Rango. And I got kind of a glass of cold water in my face when we went to actually implement and found out that they weren't able to support half of the things. So is what it is. But in digging into the why on that, what we kind of determined was that we need access to something like either general messaging protocol from Axelar or interchain accounts from ICF. And so that's why we're focusing in the next chain upgrade on enabling those two things. So enabling IBC hooks Cosmos 0.46 for Alliance and IBC 6 for the interchain accounts. And with that combination, we should be able to kind of pull all that together with a little variety even. So like not just being able to use an ICA, but also being able to use GMP is really cool. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. I'm thinking we're going to be able to get like in and out of Ethereum pretty easily with that as well. At least it looks okay from some of the testing we've seen. But obviously it's not on chain. Like we can't test. It's not on a test net. We don't know. But I'm just pumped. I'm pumped about those capabilities. And then on mobile, I finally got confirmation. My mobile developer is starting Monday. Very excited about him. And so depending on how fast he can work, sometime in the next probably 2 to 4 months, mobile will be updated to match the web and web desktop and extension deployments. We are restructuring that into a React Native application. Right now, it's like part React, part web, and so that's like that hybrid is fast to develop and deploy on, but it is not as robust as far as like speed of the application or like the ability to put in custom components or like a custom keyboard, like these sorts of things. So yeah, so those are the two things, and I'm pretty excited about them.
That's very cool.
Jared,
So,
do you mind if I jump in for a second, Steve?
yeah, go for it.
Jared, these guys are used to being on my channel and having to dumb things down for me and kind of for my audience. So I apologize to you if I, asking you this question more simply, but something that I'm hearing an awful lot is about the swap feature and also about what these guys were just talking about as far as the on-ramp or some sort of buy button or something like that. Do you have a time frame on those things? Anything that you could kind of break down for us?
Yeah, so timeframes are super hard. I think that my compatriots here will agree with that statement. As far as like, if you don't stick to exactly what they're doing, a very like strict scope and schedule, and in our case, we're more interested in a kind of nebulous outcome that doesn't exist in the crypto space at the moment, and we have the like luxury of pursuing that. So we don't necessarily stick to like, this is what we have to do this week, because it's like really freaking hard to predict. And so hats off to anyone that accomplishes that. But we do organize our sprints into week-long sprints. It's just that, so some of these things are going to be very difficult. Like I can't give a time frame on anything involving ICA or GMP because I don't really know anyone who's doing what we want to do with that. So in the final implementation of what we're looking at, and I think we were able to do it in a test environment with GMP, and we were able to do it in a test environment with a third option actually, but that's a little bit out there. To bring it to like the concise explanation. So you have let's say you have Juno on Juno, and you want to stake Lunacy. You have no lunk. In order to do that, let's say there's not a swap pair on either Juno or lunk, just so we can add another chain into this. Typically, you would need to bridge over the Juno onto Osmosis, throw Osmosis into lunk, then send the lunk over to Columbus 5, and then stake it. So this is a series of transactions. What are we at? 5 or 6 transactions by the time we're done there. You have to have gas fees, you have to have Osmosis, Juno, and lunk to pay the fees across it. So you have to hold 3 tokens, go through 2 IBC transfers, and at least 1 swap. It's a lot of things to do. And it's really prohibitive for the end user. Like, imagine if you had to do that every time you had to buy something in the store. You're like, oh, well, I have to go to Walmart, but I use Wells Fargo. So like now I got to transfer it over to this other bank to then make sure that they can have it. Like it would be ridiculous. So like bridging this gap for the end user is very important. And what we're envisioning with using these 2 methods that we're testing now. And so you have Juno, and really the hardest part is figuring out the logic that makes sense to most users and then explaining that logic to the user. So like So that this in this example, it's not too complex. It gets very complex quickly. So like you have Juno, you want Lunk, you just want 100% transfer all that into a staking. So that should be able to take place in one signature, one transaction, is the goal. Where it becomes complicated is when perhaps you own some of the assets in between, or maybe you have 50% Juno and 50% Osmosis, and you want 70% of that to go into Lunk. You know, how do you determine the logic on that in a way that is like appealing to the user? So yeah, we'll do some more research. Probably going to look at things like I can't remember the name of it. I'm trying to say money markets, and it's not quite right. Currency traders interfaces. I don't know why I'm blanking on that right now, but that's, we've been looking there.
Like Nansen, you think, stuff like that?
Yeah, like a currency desk.
Like your Forex
Yeah, okay,
type
like
stuff?
a Forex stuff. Yeah, Bloomberg terminal, stuff like that, basically.
Yeah, so I've been inspired by that Bloomberg terminal on also something that you were speaking about a little earlier that I actually really love. I just don't. I've tried to convince people to build it. I know they aren't going to. So I hope someone does. Which is, I would love to see a Bloomberg terminal in crypto. That is, components that you're able to very easily mold into the type of dashboard you want. You know, imagine you could be everything. You could see your staking rewards on this chain and this chain. It's all in live time. It's all being pulled directly from the blockchain. I think some of the solutions you were talking about earlier have that capability in Cosmos. I just don't know anyone that's gonna build that. But it's
I've been busy building that component library for the last, or researching it for the last 8 years, because I believe we can turn each component into a lightweight virtual machine that can have its own private key. And thus it ends up becoming basically like a transient application that will just follow you along. I mean, I built this first web component experiment back in 2014. This was before React existed, using Require.js and some other stuff at a bank, where we had different teams doing different processes, and each team ended up building a component, which we then composed into a master component. And then we basically launched that on our website, on our mobile apps, using this single code base. And that just created an insane network effect, to the point where the second biggest TV station in Denmark basically used this component directly in their website by simply just using a custom element. So they integrated it with an HTML tag, and it worked flawlessly. They put it on TV 3 times. And then I started looking at event enabling it, because I've been into event sourcing and microservices for a long time. And then I was like, wait a minute, blockchains provides a state channel. Maybe we have something for these transient apps. So I can do everything but the pixel fucking, because I started out as a web developer back in 1998. So I did my tour of duty pixel fucking back when it was called Netscape 2.0 and Internet Explorer 3.1. You know, when I had to build a website, I had to use a million spacer GIFs, because Internet Explorer wouldn't behave the same on Mac versus PC, and it definitely wouldn't do the same thing on Netscape. Netscape and Microsoft were fighting about divs versus layers. There was no jQuery. We had this one library for DHTML that was created by this Italian dude. You know, it's a whole other era of web development. And I quickly transitioned on to distributed systems development and stuff like that, because like, I hate CSS. I'm not doing that for the rest of my life.
Oh yeah, same here, man. That was me developing ASP.NET applications back in the day, and
You're fucking lightweight. I worked with ASP 1.0 and CGI scripts.
I was ASP 3. I think I was ASP 3.0. So we had Visual Studio at that time. That was like starting to have some Java was starting to come onto the scene a little bit of JavaScript, but it was like, man, early days. Holy cow. Thinking about, React apps now, like what you can do. So no, Jared, I think it's totally doable. What you're talking about in terms of like a Bloomberg type integrated component based dashboard. I think that's doable. It's just, who someone's got to do it. That's all,
Well,
That's the beautiful thing about these web apps, like, you know, with React and these powerful front ends. You know, it's amazing what you can do.
I've got to hop off, but I enjoyed chatting with you guys. It was good to actually catch up for a moment instead of in passing.
Yeah,
Thank you so
likewise,
much
buddy.
for joining. We really appreciate it.
That's super
Yeah,
cool.
Jared, thanks, man. All the best.
Same.
Hopefully catch up soon.
Yeah. Have a great weekend.
Okay.
You too. I hope you guys get to enjoy it.
Yeah,
Hopefully
already
we can do it
doing
again. All right, brother.
Take care.
Thanks a lot. That was cool.
Yeah, no, super nice.
Yeah.
That was fun.
I was gonna
hear
ask
a little
before
bit of what they're working on too, you know, in terms of, you know, some of the stuff they want to do with their larger ambitions for station, and, you know, like you said, they have a bit of a different situation than us in terms of, you know, we have a constrained quarter by quarter sort of environment, which is good too, you know. Just two different operating models, really, in a way.
I was going to ask before Jared left, but you know, that's fine. I was going to ask if you guys had an opportunity to talk with them about the on-ramp or where they are on that, if it's something they're doing or not.
Yeah,
No,
it's definitely
I
something we asked, and if, you know, I think that they're looking at the dependencies for that, and even based on the answer he just said, you know, they're looking at some of the, you know, requirements.
Yeah, good.
I know. I think it's clear that they're focusing a lot on the user experience, and I think that's very important. So I also agree with what Steve said, that, you know, they're probably going to manage that because it makes sense to do while they're looking at different, you know, upgrades they can do. And that, I think, is also a good thing, because I mean, we still have some work to do before we catch up with them, so to speak, from a parity perspective. And once we're at parity, maybe they're, you know, done with their work, and then we can start geeking out about virtual machine component plugins and new future features, which is this thing that I always called, you know, the clear skies. When we get past all of the necessary stuff that we have to do, and we can sort of just sit on the mountaintop and look across the world and decide where we want to go.
Yeah. I see all the love coming from the chat, you guys, and I really appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. And you know, I'm glad that everybody's having a great time in the chat. You know, Zaradar is a visionary. I mean, you guys might be a little drunk right now, but other than that, you know, it's Friday night.
I actually don't drink that often, so I'm not drunk.
I'm
But
talking
yeah.
about these guys that are calling you a
Ah,
visionary.
okay.
Oh, that's okay. It's Friday night. That's okay for people to do that. I'm probably going to enjoy a nice cold beer in a little bit.
Oh, hell
myself.
yeah, it's Friday night.
It's Friday night, so that's what I'm thinking.
I wanted to I wanted to bring something else to you guys. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. Can you see my, yeah, you can see this, right?
Yeah.
All right. So I had done a couple of polls on Twitter, and there's another one actually that's active right now. And you know, I got some what I consider to be interesting results, and I think you guys have been paying attention to this too. And I wanted to just quickly go through them and kind of get your take on what the kind of outcomes were.
And just so you know, Trev, I've been paying incredibly close attention to it.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, ultimately, what we need an understanding of what's important from the community, right? So
right.
We try to know exactly, and this is why I keep saying that what you do, going out there, and what the COC has been doing, you guys are all doing a heck of a job. You know, really in keeping engaging and folks and asking what's important really lets us understand what the community wants. And then ultimately what we're going to need to do is, you know, it's like almost like setting sail for a journey, we're going to have what is desired, and then we're going to have, the people that we have to contend with, the regulatory items, the frameworks that the governments around the world will be introducing, all those kinds of things to get to where we want to go. So again, I think this is amazing. But sorry for going off there on a tangent.
You can interrupt me to compliment me anytime you want to.
No worries.
So the options that I've been putting in these polls, I try to explain to people, this doesn't necessarily mean that whatever wins here is what's going to be worked on. And honestly, some of these things that I put in here, I know probably can't get worked on in Q2 anyway. But
I mean, one of them we can't ever work on because it's not in our power to fix.
Right. Well, I mean, and that might be the case for some of this stuff, but more than that, these polls, and I don't know how you guys are looking at it, but these polls are giving me more information on where kind of the community's head is at, right? So I'm getting a lot of information, probably more information than people realize from these, and also in the comments below. And I know that Steve's been reading through all that stuff too. I really appreciate this engagement from everybody, so I hope this keeps up. This particular one, this was the first one that I put out, and the 4 options were repeg, 100% separation from TFL, some sort of L2 task force, and a roadmap or a plan, right? And repeg slaughtered everything else. But tell me what you guys think about that.
Okay, go ahead, Steve.
What I was going to say is that the repeg is entirely dependent on legal advice. So it is entirely dependent on the interpretation of what is allowable with what the government framework is going to be and what is not. And that requires lawyers, and that requires budget for lawyers. And if we get good legal advice that says we can do it, then we can do it. If we get advice that says you can't do it, then that means you can't do it.
But even if a lawyer says that we can do it, we still need volume, and we still need liquidity, and we still need a ton of other stuff. So the point here is that we can build, the city, but it's the people who actually make it a city, right? So people are going to have to move there and start building there and making a life there and doing business there. And from that, you will have a natural occurring repeg. So this is why I mean, I get the when repeg question every day. So for me, it's obviously, the most important thing, but it's also something that isn't really something we can fix. But again, that's okay, because it was the community's responsibility to sort of look at that. So I think while the L1 team can, help on the other parts, I don't necessarily think 100% separation from TFL in terms of working together on open source and stuff like that is desirable. I mean, just looking at the session we just had, what this is more about is us being able to stand on our own feet, because in some ways, we're like the little brother. They're still sort of, supporting us. But the second we grow up and start supporting ourselves, we establish a true peer relationship with TFL that is not, based on mutual dependencies, but rather on a mutual desire to basically grow the cosmos and create open source software. And that, I think, is a relationship that we want to maintain, but we want to separate from them on the infrastructure level and so on, because it's not fair to keep asking these guys to carry that load, right? They're just the older brother in this relationship, but at some point we're going to have to stand on our own feet. The L2 task force is something that we're actually working on. I had a meeting last night with Rexy. We're hopefully going to meet with the TGF next week to start, talking about the, early innings of setting up a layer 2 task force. And then I think the roadmap is the kind of thing that would very much go on the layer one's Q2, in scope work item list, and they would probably work, with the COC on this and do some community outreach and so on to sort of further clarify which component pieces are important. I know a lot of people are, interested in the swap system. I know from talking with TCV or with Rexy that, there's also some interest in the partition pool concept. We have other future upgrade components, and then we'll try to sort of maybe do like a questionnaire on which top 3 items out of 10 maybe should be focused on and stuff like that. So yeah, I think the 3 other items are within our sort of area of influence to help sort of bring about, but I think separation from TFL is not necessarily what some people think it will be.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you say the word separation from TFL, that means, like Tobias said, where they don't have to pay our hydro.
Sounds
bill
like a
for us.
divorce, right? I mean, and that's not really what we want. Sorry.
Yeah, no. We just don't want, like, it's not that. We still want to have the cooperation with them, and just like we had today, where they're building some cool stuff. We'll once we get past the upgrades, we'll be building some really cool stuff, and you want all the Cosmos ecosystems to grow together. So I think it's important we have that dialogue and work together. I just want to clarify with the L2 task force, just so that if there's anybody listening or that listens in the future, this is not like this task force would not like be a development team that would take over the development of DApps for other layer 2 guys. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like a competitor company to other companies. It's a supporting type of role that enables everybody in the layer 2 to do well. And then arguably for certain key components, things like, when we maybe one day we want to have our own wallet or something to that effect, that would be maintained and managed by that team. So just wanted to add that in. But yeah, I think these are all really good pieces. I think that the first item, the repeg, like Tobias said, that can be broken down further into the different component parts of it. And like Tobias said, I think we can pave the road, but ultimately it's going to be up to the community and the user base to use it, and for that for people to we'll build it, and hopefully the people will come. I'm hoping. We just have to make sure, the caveat I put in there is that we do it inside of our legal framework that our governmental folks around the world will be introducing over the next 6 to 8 months or 12 months.
Where are we on that? Have we reached out to any legal counsel or made any inquiries at all?
So
I think we still have an option of rekindling our sort of relationship from last December with the Cerberus company in the US. I think that would be the preferred option from my perspective, at least. But again, this is actually really more the TGF body that has to decide that. So I think we're working on creating some sort of meeting forum there where we can start discussing these matters, because we also have to, Steve and I consistently try to push against any sort of responsibility that goes outside what we view as our area of responsibility. Because otherwise what will quickly happen is that we will get too much responsibility, too much influence, and then everything will become centralized again.
Well, it must be difficult because, a lot of this stuff ends up falling on you guys. Like I think about some, like the validator thing, right? Where, we have some validators who are a little less experienced. Everything that went on with the update should have been a validator thing, but because maybe they didn't all have the ability to kind of figure it out, it's something that you guys had to step into that maybe wasn't really, your job. And I just see that happening kind of often because you guys are like good at a lot of stuff, you know?
I
Well,
mean,
I think
it
there's
happens a lot by sometimes by choice and sometimes by accident. I mean, I try to be a somewhat patient guy. Typically, if I end up blocking somebody on Twitter, it's because I perceive I have spent too much time on them individually, right? Because the fact of the matter is that somebody wants LBAs or Zaradars or its opinion on everything all the time. And I mean, we have to assess when people reach out to us, we try to have an open door policy, and then sometimes we go under the mattresses just to sort of, you know, focus on work. But yeah, it's a balancing act. And I mean, I think it's something that by and large is a positive. It means people care, but you know, we also have to teach people that this kind of work just has a certain cadence to it. And once they understand that the guys who come out in the middle of the night trying to rip up the road are not there to rob the neighborhood and create anarchy, but rather they're preparing for, you know, putting in new pipes or whatever, then I think a lot of this will subside, and then the more, like what I like to say, logical and reasonable suggestions will persist, and out of that we will grow a stronger community. I mean, this is also why, for instance, I've been talking a bit recently with Duncan about maybe and Rexy about how maybe we could make like a donate to Duncan campaign, and we can bring Duncan in and start using him as a junior dev to test our dojo material, and sort of like a business analyst to go and query community stuff and write out different things, knowing full well that we can most likely, you know, hire a professional at a slightly higher price. But what we are about is about empowering our community, because we understand that if we invest in Duncan rather than some Accenture outsider, then we're making a stronger community. So, you know, that's also a component of what we have to sort of assess as we go along, which is also why we spend a lot of effort in engaging things like this, in things like this.
I think the
Yeah,
Duncan
I'm
thing
definitely
would
on the
make a
same
lot
page
of people
there.
happy.
Yeah, I think, you know, a lot of the strides that we've made, there's a lot of really good, when we look at the L2, you know, team, and any of the work that Duncan will do surrounding his, you know, USTC and all of that stuff, you know, he does need to get paid. And I think, you know, the L2 team, I suspect, you know, nothing's been confirmed yet, but I suspect that I would probably try to influence and get the similar structure that I've provided to the that, you know, Tobias and I worked on to build for the L1 team, and that I've provided there. We would probably look to provide something similar for the L2 team, you know, just so that there's some consistency in processes and stuff. So I think, you know, these are all exciting things, but at the bottom line, you know, guys like Duncan, we have to pay them. And, you know, I think
we actually have a mandate to pay them from governance, and I see this very much as just incubating Duncan's Siggy dream, right? And I don't care what it takes to build it. I believe in his conviction, and I know that technically it can be done if we have enough time and resources. So for me, this is about saying we have a need for somebody to do ad hoc things. He's very in tune with the community. He's, you know, a diamond in the rough. So let's bring him into the dojo. Let's school him in the katas. Let's make him more aware of how the sort of what we call physical architecture of our platform works. And that will also in turn allow him to make better reasonings at the sort of level he works on when he sits around and dreams about the future of DeFi. Right. And then maybe someday that can, you know, grow into creating consensus around, you know, a real, you know, strategy for a new MMA algorithm. And then maybe also one day, you know, allow Siggy to become a reality. For me, this is the first steps along this way, because we always knew from sort of our past experience that the L1 team itself was never going to be enough, right? Which means that inherently we always knew that the TGF would need more cells. And I think, in the context of Duncan, he might be like a satellite to the L1 team, but hopefully Duncan can grow into its own team, because we're going to need a team of financial wizards to focus on how to build SIGI. Most of that is more financial engineering than it's really coding. So this is just us doing the next few steps with the resources we have at our disposal. And, we have to be lean. That's why, unlike, Jared and his guys, we can't really, do a lot of big stuff, because inherently it comes at a cost, right? You don't invent the wheel in a day. Nobody invented electricity overnight. It just doesn't work like that.
Just going to the chat real quick. BTC says increase the number of utilities so that the number of burn and the community pool will increase to drive up the price. Come on, thanks. Yeah, I mean, that's, it's definitely a perspective that a lot of people share. DY asks, is it difficult interoperability with ETH? I don't know what that means.
No, IBC was more, I think, IBC is more or less compatible with ETH and Bitcoin. I don't remember which version you need, but yeah, it should be supported. Okay. It's going to require, so IBC is basically just a way to exchange very small dApps that are standardized around communicating in a specific way. And I mean, I think Ethereum were the first who came up with atomic swaps for Bitcoin back in 17 or 18 or something like that. And the Cosmos adopted that over. So at some version, I can't remember which one, you should have support for that.
Yeah. Richard Goodall says, you can pave the road, but we need to bring the traffic.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's a great analogy, actually. That is, it really is. That's it 100%. Like Tobias keeps saying it, and he's absolutely right. Like we can't do that. One of the things I think that, as we mature as a community and as an organization, there does need to be a sort of sales and marketing type component that happens for Luna Classic, that's done in an organized and thoughtful way by those types of professionals. And hopefully we'll get there with that too one day, right? Because that's what every big mature blockchain has, right? There's somebody sitting at one of the tables at the conferences, at all the big blockchain conferences, with Binance and so on. We need to eventually, as a community and as a blockchain, make our way out there.
Yeah. You can always rely on Mr. Goodall to have something cool to say. Whisper says, very nice to hear some L2 plans are being discussed. I believe you are right. JB, has any security issue been fixed with the Lunk coding to protect it from attacks and backdoor attacks? Recall there was some major issue due to some coding issues.
Are we back to the whole, what was it called, UDK whatever, Astroport backdoor thing?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, okay, so some ethical hacker copied some WASM code and changed some settings, and now he can reuse that compiled code to do stuff. It's not really a backdoor into the layer 1. So no, there's no concerns here. But with that said, we did do a number of upgrades of high and medium severity level threats. We use a tool from a company called Snyk, which is one of the leading tooling providers within the space of providing basically IDE integrated tooling that detects vulnerabilities in your code while you're coding. We use stuff like Google Copilot to help us predict problems and stuff like that. So we are fairly aware of security issues in the code, but none of the stuff being discussed on Twitter is actually related to that, because we do not talk about security issues in public. It's a simple policy issue in our team.
Right. All right.
Yeah, I really want to
Good.
highlight what Tobias just said. There was this, and I'm not going to say who it was, but there were some people debating online and Twitter. I think it was during a Twitter space where I had joined, and I said, if you guys actually feel like you found a valid security concern, let us know and tell us, privately, so that we can look at it and assess whether it's valid. And some folks said, oh, it's better if you tweet all about the security concern all over Twitter, so that, a lot of people can be looking at it at the same time, rather than, trying to centralize security. So bottom line is, I do want to say that you do want to ensure that if you find a valid security risk, do not share it. It's not.
Listen, there's a reason
Yeah.
that big companies have bounty programs. So I was trained in security by an African American guy that worked for the NSA and the US Army in the Danish Technical Institute, and I know nothing, right? I know enough about hobby hacking and so on to know about security. But the general problem that we have here is that the bad actors, they typically move a lot faster than the defense troopers, right? So it's kind of like a game of cops and robbers. And this is why, one of the key learnings that I got from him was that you don't discuss security in the open. You have bounty programs where people will get paid for these vulnerabilities, so they do not go on Reddit and have the discussions, because the damages that they do in doing so far outweighs any conceivable benefit of having an open, transparent discussion about this, because of the degree to which our society by and large have become dependent on these types of systems, right? So this is really just why in general we treat security very seriously. And I published an article, or actually a post-mortem last year, with all of the security issues, and none of the people whom are active on Twitter about security have ever talked about any of that, because quite frankly, they don't know.
Okay. All right, moving on a little bit. Richie's Plain Talk. Thank you very much for the super chat. You're extremely reliable. He says, sorry, just got here, Trev. I'm going to drop that 3D NFT. I'm going to tell you guys about this. That 3D NFT with sound soon to support the L1 team. Soon as I have some problems figuring out how to drop it, I'm excited. So this guy, Richard, I've known him for a while. He's very often in Matt's live streams is pretty much where I met him. And he's been a subscriber and a follower of my channel for a while. The guy is unbelievably generous and selfless. And he actually made, or he had made for him, this 3D NFT. And if I was prepared, I would actually show you it, but with this dragon, and it breathes fire, and LUNC coins fly everywhere. It's kind of a cool thing, right? But anyway, he made it for the specific reason of, if he sells any of them at all, right? Everything that he sells, 100% of it, I believe, right? And I don't mean to put you on the spot, Richie, if I'm wrong, but I believe he said like all the profits that he makes from this thing are going to be donated to supporting the L1 task force. And I think that's awesome. I really do. And I applaud the efforts of anybody in the community who actually goes that far and does that much. And on that, I also want to mention, talking to Chrissy from the blocks from Lunk Development Fund Validator. And she asked me to mention that they also donated today to the L1 task force. And I believe that they donate, I don't know what portion it is that they donate, but they donate a portion of their profits or whatever.
700,000.
I'm sorry?
700,000 Lunk.
700,000 Lunk is what they donated today?
Yeah, I think that was the number I saw on Twitter.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah,
So
super cool.
Congratulations to them. I don't know if there are or aren't, but they're the only validator that I know of, except maybe TMM, who actually takes of their profits or whatever it is that they're getting, and helps to support the L1 task force. They're a bunch of great people, and if you're looking for someone to validate with, you check them out and make your own decision on that. But they're definitely worth checking out. So is TMM. So anything else you guys wanted to say on that?
Oh, I'm good. I'm falling
Okay.
asleep soon.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
I was just going to say, Trev, I've got about 5 minutes. My teenage daughter's wanting me to go give her a drive on a Friday night. So
Okay.
I'll
Bring
go
your
and
shotgun.
Sorry?
Right.
Bring your shotgun. No,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
All right. You can bow out whenever you want to. Real quick, let me just go to this second poll. We kind of got off on a tangent on some other things, but
Yeah.
this one here, this is the second one that we did, and the options were parity with Luna, the swap mechanism, which we talked to Jared about earlier. Lowering the supply. There's a bunch of people who burning is very important to them, but really any way to lower the supply, and doing some sort of leadership structure. And this one, it was pretty almost a tie between getting to parity and lowering the supply. And these were the things that were most important to the community.
But I think we're kind of in luck here, because I think reaching parity will inherently lead to a reduction in supply, because we've become a deflationary currency again. I mean, if people look at the price crash we had last night across the board, right? I think one of the benefits is that this crash happened with the new sort of burn tax payment from Binance again, right? Which means that the amount of money they record in this month will obviously benefit significantly from that price, even though the price fell. But from a reducing supply perspective, price doesn't really matter, right? It's really more about price action, meaning that the price moves a lot and that there's a lot of volume. So I think getting to V2 parity will increase, adoption, and it will increase network effect, and that will lead to more volume, which will inherently lead to lower supply.
Right. Cool. LBA, you gotta dip out.
Yeah. I'm gonna dip out in a couple minutes here. I think this is exactly it. The leadership structure is going to be important, just in terms of, and I think, interestingly, it's kind of lowest on that list in terms of priority, but it's still important to be there, because I think it's inherently going to, if we set up the proper L1 and L2 teams. See, one of the things we were talking about earlier that you were saying, Trev, is, that oftentimes the L1 team will take on, stuff that, or we'll talk about stuff, and people will ask us about stuff that really isn't in our control. Like we, Tobias and I were talking about this earlier this afternoon, really our work is at the layer 1 level. And Craig did a really nice Medium article where he talked about the 3 levels, and I'm gonna share that in my status update, as well as Tobias. He provided one that shows the different architectural levels of the blockchain. We're really, the layer 1 team is in charge of the layer 1. So anything to do with, station wallet or things like that is totally layer 2. Any wallets, any other apps, not layer 1, and it's going to be important that I continue, and that we continue to discuss that, so that there's an understanding, where those roles and responsibilities lie. And once we get our own layer 2 team, then it's going to be even easier to bridge that a little bit better, because then in our own community, we'll have, hey, if people are asking us layer 2 questions, we can just send them straight to our own layer 2 layer 2 group. So I just wanted to add that, and I think that's why that leadership structure is kind of an important piece that way, that inherently helps all of those other things on the list.
Absolutely. I agree with you. Right before you take off, let me just show you something real quick. See if I can actually do this. Am I doing it right? Let me see.
Is that demon monkey you've got in the background there, Trev?
At least like a dinosaur. No, it's a flying dinosaur.
Oh, you can see it. Can you see it?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
see. I was saying, is that demon monkey or what is that?
No, it's a dragon. No, it's
Oh,
like
that's super cool.
Drake. Yeah. Where's that from? Ah, nice. Somebody's having fun with 3D Studio Max.
So this was Richie Plain Talk. This is the NFT that he actually made. I thought it was awesome, and I just wanted to share it with you guys.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
Real quick. I know you could see it. I hope that it was able to go out over the stream, because I've got so many things going on here. I can't tell if I actually did that right. But Richie, I'm going to link it in the description. So anybody who wants to check it out, you'll have a link to I think I should be able to download it and be able to link it. But this is what he's developing. This is what he's putting out, and this is what he wants to sell. And it's basically just a collectible. There are different colors and different, what abilities and noises. I don't know what they do, right? But he put this together basically just to support the L1 task force. So it's another way that you can support them if you want to buy these things when he figures out how to drop them, because he really hasn't dropped them yet. But I'll keep you notified when that happens. In the meantime, if you want to subscribe, it's called Richie's Plain Talk. He has a small YouTube channel that he's just starting, and he's kind of like me. He kind of just speaks his mind and be damned what everybody thinks about it. So I appreciate him. LuncBurnArmy, thank you so much for joining us and giving me your time. We've been here about 2 hours now. So we're going to release you to your daughter, and I hope you have a safe night.
No, thank you. Thank you, guys. It was another really fun fun discussion, and I hope everybody has a good weekend.
You too, buddy.
Collectively, I think the team is going to hopefully get some sleep, as I hope the validators who helped with our upgrade. I think it was a big achievement for the blockchain. Now we're like, we're a big part of the way there. Now we've got 2 more big upgrades to go, and exciting times ahead, I think, for the blockchain. So
I agree with you. All right, brother. Have yourself a good night, and we'll talk soon.
All right,
take care, Steve.
Take care, guys. Bye.
All right, that leaves me and you like usual. The 2 old guys were up the latest. I know it's very late there, so I'm not going to keep you any longer.
No, it's all good. I have another half an hour in me. My son is out with his girlfriend, so I'm just chilling at home.
Oh, I gotcha. All right. Well, let me go to the chat here and see what these guys are talking about. Machinery 77 says, why don't Ed apply for such fund? Maybe grantee year or 2 fund for L1. He might be referring to something we were talking about earlier, so I'm not really sure what that question's about. Was there some funding at one time that Binance was offering or something that we were looking into?
No.
No, I thought.
No, I mean, people have spoken about it a few times. I mean, Binance has a grant program, I think, for people building new blockchains. It's kind of like an incubation system to ensure that, there's a steady stream of products coming into their platform. I think the problem is that our particular network is not, a new product. It were probably already once through the incubation program back when TFL started. So most likely, we found that there's not really any funding there. Then we spoke with other parties. They inherently never materialized any funding, and inherently we sort of accepted that the funding that we have at our disposal is whatever's in the community pool.
Okay. All right. I mean, I could ask you about where you guys are on funding for the next one, but I know that you like to leave that up to
I don't know.
TGF. It's not really
I
something.
I only comment on the budget when I'm asked, and
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, fine. I mean,
But it sounds like there are big plans for Q2. I mean, there are a lot of things that could
I
be
think we
added.
have the funding in place for Q2, right?
Okay.
I mean, obviously, if the market drops another 50%, we might only have money for a month and a half, but then we'll probably just go for that. The
Okay.
bottom line is that we'll have to see where we stand at the end of this month and how much in the community pool. And from that, we're basically going to have to come up with a budget. And then we're going to be kind of like, it's kind of going to be like a government budget in the sense in the beginning that the community pool is the government and it has a certain budget. And right now it's paying for the L1 team. And then we're going to have to sort of, bump the L1 budget a bit. We're going to have to make room for Duncan if we can find room for that. We're going to have to make room for intensive programs. And then at each quarter, I think the TGF will produce a budget proposal that amounts roughly to what's in the community pool until we get to a point in time where we have an overflow of funding, at which point we can start making more long-term plans. So in a sense, we just have to make a new fiscal budget every quarter. That's basically the state of our nation, so to speak.
Yeah, I got you. All right. I pulled up this third poll. This one is actually active right now. And the four options are increase funds to the pool, which is something we were just talking about 2 seconds ago, right? Higher legal representation, which we were talking about a little earlier. Raise the tax from 0.2, which I believe maybe some people are preparing to try to push again. And the last one is shorten undelegate period. This has been up for, I don't know, maybe 24 hours or so. And it's got 230 votes. And right now, increased funds to the pool is kind of running away with it right now. Okay, we understand that it's all on TGF as far as the funding and all that, but it's pretty obvious that we're going to be looking for more funding for this next proposal, maybe considerably more. I don't know.
I think the budget that I saw was somewhere around $180,000.
Okay.
And I think that includes a salary for Duncan. But this was basically, I had one meeting with LBA about this because he's basically the guy sort of trying to gauge what the budget expenses will be, and then we have to meet with Marco and then basically get agreement with the TGF. But I think it was roughly in that range, so it's not like, I mean, comparatively we got $150,000 in Q1, so it's like a 15% increase, which I don't think is unfair, granted the work that have been done and the value that we have produced and the added value that we will produce in Q2. So hopefully people will embrace this.
I can tell you, I think that is a considerably lower number than what I was expecting. I'll be honest.
Well, I mean, we try to teach fiscal discipline. I mean, one of the reasons, and I have to even remind LBA of this once in a while, is that one of the reasons why we have this very agile, focused structure is because I've been in enterprise IT for 2 decades. It works if you want to control resources, right? So we're basically just using a lean model where we practice agility. And this is what allows us to incrementally grow our budget as we become more capable of handling more stuff. Because I mean, I could ask for $2 million tomorrow, no problem, and then say, I'm going to fix the world. But that's going to be a mighty big promise. And there's not a lot of guarantee of success if I try to do everything at once. So this is why I think people should rather see our, fiscal suggestions as, we're going to increase the budget if we want to try to achieve parity with developer salaries, right? So there's that. And that's something we're going to do over a series of increments, because otherwise the budget would probably be maybe twice as big. right?
Yeah.
But then we also want to add in new expenses, and we also want to pay our juniors every month now, so we can incentivize them to start working on the dojo and stuff like that. So I think the new budget package, you know, the number might end up a little over 200,000 when we get all the other expenses in, but I think we will have a good proposal for people, and I believe that we probably will have the money in the community pool at the end of the month when we have to sort of settle the score.
Well, because now we're also it wasn't expected, but now we're also looking at potentially bringing on some sort of legal counsel or something like that. I mean, that can't be cheap.
No, but I think this is where we have to wait a bit, right? This is again an increment that comes maybe after Q2 if price increases and community funding increases. But we spoke about that on the space the other day, right? We have a turnkey solution for the legal problem. It's just going to cost $1.6 million for like a full year budget, which would then also cover salaries for at least half of the L1 team for a full year, right? But this is probably one of these times where it's better to eat the particular elephant in smaller pieces, and that's what we're trying to do now, because by and large, you know, I've tried running a company off a crypto budget before, and it's almost impossible. You'll make a 3-month budget forecast and then price craters, and you have to redo the forecast. Maybe you have to go and borrow money in the bank. Maybe you have to go and sell some shares to an investor, right? Sometimes you have the opposite problem. All of a sudden the budget balloons. Now you have to report extra capital gains, right? So there's a whole other problem when the price goes up. So in general, this is why our standing rule, and both LBIA and I were very insisting on this, is that we instantly convert the long we get into USDC, right? Basically to hedge the volatility. And then that amount of dollars relates to the budget we request, for the quarter. That guarantees that we have money to pay the workers and stuff like that, and keep the, quote unquote, government department running.
Yeah. A little ways in, how can I put this nicely? We had some money get freed up.
Is that the 4 million thing?
No, I'm talking about Jacob and his crew's salary, right?
Yeah. But that was largely redirected to pay Vin's salary moving ahead, because we felt that Vin is a very capable young man. So we decided to basically give him the same salary as Ed and Vin, Ed and Till, even though he works full time, because I mean, there's also the whole cost of living thing, and the salary we're giving him now is very good for a place where he lives. So that keeps him happy, that keeps him productive. He's one of our most productive members of the team from a Cosmos perspective. And then the rest has been diverted to basically pay, Steve something closer to what he's worth, right? Because his nominal salary for Q1 was $2,500, and I think we can both agree
honestly, that was
is ridiculous. But that was because the salary was meant for a PA, not for a PM, right? So a personal assistant to Ed and myself, not a project manager. And Steve clearly has a lot of capacity. Plus, he also runs a validator and so on. So we tried to basically align that budget, and we're still going to have to come up with an amendment for it to basically get the government to also approve, or consensus to approve. But we're working on basically rerouting an extra $2,500 to him, and so on and so forth. So that means that by and large, that money got sucked up by basically paying the guy who did the work for Jacob. And then also we had to buy a new laptop for Superman, and we had to buy a new laptop for, for LBA and so on. So the expenses the money was still spent on other stuff, which I think is fair considering.
I could use a new laptop. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah, but you're not the lead developer of the L1 team, so yeah, you're gonna.
Yeah, let me tell you,
buddy.
Steve deserves a raise just for dealing with how much I drive him crazy on a daily basis. So that's awesome. I'm glad you were able to. I didn't, because I really didn't know. And you'd probably said it before, but I didn't know exactly. I know that there was talk about how that could actually be directed or redirected, and I thought that it all made sense. But and it sounds like basically exactly what was talked about is what happened. So I'm happy with that. I think that was all. Every bit of that was actually perfect. All right, Rage Pie, I see you. How you doing? Thanks for being here. Mr. G says, is there an address for community pool we can send Lunk? What you talk, if
there's already there's already a community fund proposal where you can send money to the community pool, if I remember correctly. You just have to go look in the documentation, but you can just ping me on Discord, Rage, then we can talk about it.
Okay, yeah, I don't know that address offhand, off the top of my head.
It's not really, I don't really think it's an address. I think it's actually a proposal, but I've never used it myself, and I've only
where do you
documentation.
But where do you send the donation? You got to send it somewhere.
It goes to the community pool. It's basically a proposal of sorts, like you sent. But anyways, I'll try to figure it out and get the documentation to Rage, and then he'll know.
All right, yeah, because I'm trying to. All right, like, how do you get it in there? There's got to be some place you send it, right? I mean, I don't know. Maybe
I found it somewhere in the classic docs way back. So it's like I'm gonna have to go and dig around to see if I can find it again.
All right, yeah, Rage, if you've got that, send that to me too, and I can get that information out. Okay, people are busy and don't have time to think for everything. Just make us to subscribe easy. I'm not sure what you mean. All right. Did I miss something? First off, Richie has been a member. It seems like for quite a while, 5 months, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, that's sorry to break you up, but I'm just gonna put the link in here in the chat. There is it's called the Message Fund Community Pool, where you specify an amount of coins and then a depositor address.
Oh, okay, cool.
See if I can find the chat here. I'll just put it in the chat. 1 second. There we go. I mean, stuff like this is typically available in the documentation, but obviously you have to know where to look, right? So since I've spent a lot of time browsing over this, it's easy for me to find.
All right, I'm going to see if I can drop this in the chat of the. Let's see how. I think I did it. I don't know. I'll look at it in a minute. But all right, so all right, I'm gonna keep this, and I will also. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, that should be good. All right. All right. So anyway, Richie, thank you for the additional super chat. You do not need to do that. Mr. G wants to know if there is a way to donate to the team. If you want to donate to the team, you would send that to TGF, yeah? Yeah,
that's the way you go.
Yeah, so you get in touch with Terra Grants Foundation, and they've got a way that you can specifically you can donate to them and specify that you want it to go to the L1 task force. JB, welcome to Groupies. So a new member, thank you very much. Richie gifted 20. Oh, okay. Richie gifted 20 memberships to guys in the chat. That's awesome. Appreciate it. I see Russell is here, and he hasn't said a word the whole time, so I didn't know he was here, but welcome. Yeah, everybody that just got a free membership, thank Richie for it. My memberships are like 99 cents a month, right? So you know, if you choose to continue it, that's cool. I figured once I actually get enough members, you know, sometimes I'll go to like members only chat. Or if sometimes you got a lot of people in the chat really just kind of being assholes, it's nice to go to members only chat. So appreciate that, Richie. Thanks a lot. Looks like he gifted 10 more. Oh my goodness. I think he gifted like 30 memberships, and there's probably only 20 people in the chat. All right. Thanks a lot, buddy. I appreciate you. All right. So that was increase the pools, higher legal rep. Yeah, we talked about that already. Raise the tax. Yeah, I heard that there could be a proposal. Maybe it's already released or coming soon, talking about raising this tax again. I'll tell you the way I feel about it. we keep moving this tax back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I think it makes us look foolish.
You need a disclaimer. You need like a disclaimer saying, here, grumpy old man statement is coming. Be aware,
Oh,
brace for impact.
Everybody should just know it at this point. You know what I mean? But
but we are the old guys on the balcony yelling at the burn tax, because the point is that taxes are good, but if you burn your taxes, not so good, right? So I think personally that the burn tax needs to go at some point at the end of this year. And then we need to increase the tax to actually start generating revenue for the community pool. And then we need to start investing into businesses that will lead to generating more tax, because I mean, the thing is that it's not really a problem having a 5 trillion token supply if 4 trillion is sitting in the community pool. That just means that we are a very wealthy ecosystem that have money to invest, right? So the number of tokens in the short term is not significant, because as I've already explained to people, the math on reducing the supply is a generational thing. We will, benefit economically from our efforts, no doubt, but the real gains will be for our children and our children's children if we succeed.
Yeah, right. And we've talked about, like when we talk about parity and stuff, we've talked about how you can never really achieve true parity anyway because of this burn tax that we have. Any DApp that would want to come and work, they've got to make some adjustments to some smart contracts, and they've got to do a little work because of this burn tax. And Zaradar, you've heard him say it, or you've heard me repeat that he has said it. This burn, and I did a video about it just a day or two ago as well. The burn tax, it's just not going to get
you can
where
from a real world perspective, looking at the cosmos, you can think of the burn tax as a trade tariff, right? And what good has trade tariffs ever done anybody?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe short term, sure, you make a bit of money, but long term, it only creates animosity and chaos in the world.
Okay, so Binance just burned 8.8 billion LUNC, and it sounded like a lot, but I did a video where I kind of broke it down. When I think about it, 8.8 billion, that's okay. 8.8 billion. But I was talking about how, there's 1,000 billion in every trillion, and we have a supply of 6.8 trillion.
I think Binance had, just to put this into comparison, when the price crashed last night, Binance had roughly $100 million of volume across 2 pairs, right? I don't remember, but it's 0.2%, and then it's half of that, so it's 0.1% of $100 million, right? What's that, like 100,000? That's 10% of the entire burn they just did that they basically generated last night, and that's on those 2 pairs alone. So I mean, I think it again just proves the statement from empiric data perspective that LBA did the other day when he spoke about volume in the space, that this is again about volume. If you want to produce burns, and I think CSET also said that it's better to have a low burn tax with high volume than it is to have a high burn tax with low volume.
Right. And another shout out to Richie. Richie burned, he took 3 months of his staking rewards, which came out to about 650,000 LUNC, and burned it all on the first. So there is a large, and I catch hell for this all the time, because I'm always, and I told Richie, I hope you never do that again. You basically, I felt like he threw a lot of his money away, and some people really get mad at me when I say it. I don't like to see people burn their own money.
Well, I mean, that's what people basically want to have happen from the burn perspective, right? So in a sense, I think it's a very unselfish thing to do.
Sure.
And I you know, I respect that he did it, but I largely share your view. We cannot be dependent on altruism. We need to find, you know, a proper way to fix this that doesn't require that, you know, some of the, you know, real community advocates, they start burning their own money, because that leaves them with less resources in the infinite game. And the whales, they will happily sit on the sidelines for the next 5 years with their bags, so they're not really going to burn anything. So we need to come up with a way to have people use the system so we generate enough revenue that we can, you know, burn from the shared rewards rather than from individual rewards.
Yeah, right. Which is what I keep saying, but there are people that are just diehard, you know. It reminds me of in the United States, we've got the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and one kind of has a concept of build the country from the bottom up, and the other one has the concept of build the country, you know, everything will trickle down economics. And you know, the two very opposite perspectives, and I feel like that's what we go through with, you know, the crowd that's like, let's burn, and if we reduce the supply, then DApps will want to come and work. And then you've got the other side that says, well, no, let's build utility, and through the utility we will actually burn it off. And I don't know how to join those two sections together, because they have their ideologies, and that's it. They won't bend.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here, right? And I'm gonna argue that the hardcore burn people, they are probably neither Republican or Democrat in your analogy. They're probably more akin to anarchists. And I think some people just like to watch the world burn, to quote, you know, an old Batman movie. So at the end of the day, for me, this is about fiscal reasoning and how to deal with austerity at a you know, a greater level than just getting a few individuals to do altruistic actions. And austerity is something that is difficult for all societies. It's something that even our, you know, real society has started discussing over the last month or so, as people are more keen on a, you know, recession coming in. And I think, you know, austerity is best carried as a common burden, which is why we have to find, you know, a solution to do that. And I don't really think that the DApps care about the amount of tokens in circulating supply. They care about price stability. They care about network effect. They care about number of users. Those are the things that they can build services for, that they can make money off. And if that works for them, and they can build a successful business, then they probably don't care that we have 6 trillion tokens, to be honest.
Yeah.
Some of them might even see it as a benefit, because I mean, think about some of the old war stories from for instance, I remember reading an article from the CTO of Ripple back in 2016 or 17, where he was basically describing how he was doing, you know, JavaScript development on Bitcoin, and he was using, you know, entire units of Bitcoin for testing. That would, I mean, he would use the Bitcoin and it would be gone, right? So from a developer perspective, having an abundance of a supply gives you more calm if you want to start, you know, playing with a few 100,000 or million tokens. Whereas if you have 1 million ETH and you lose 1 million ETH, then it's game over, right? So there's pros and cons, and I'm also more keen again on this machine-to-machine economy. In a machine-to-machine economy, 6 trillion tokens is not enough, because I want to make, you know, we talk about industry 4.0 and IoT, right? So the future is that your vending machine will be an autonomous unit. It will order its own electricity. It will order its own internet. It will reorder its own supply. It will transact its proceeds to its owners using crypto, it can be multi-sig owned by a community, so on. But by and large, it's going to be its own little R2D2 to sort of dumb it down that can serve up any type of soft drink for you. And this R2D2 would very much like to have 1 billion LUNC in its coffers, because that means that it can actually autonomously pay for stuff without having to send a message to you to go and pay a bill somewhere, which actually makes this entire ecosystem of interconnected edge devices work. So again, I'm not too concerned about the supply. I love the burn tax from a building community strength perspective, but from a pure fiscal perspective, it's no bueno.
I think I saw that vending machine on Shark Tank.
Well, people are building them as we speak.
I think so. I'm serious. I saw something like that.
The point is that people do not understand that there's probably not enough blockchain networks right now to service the future industry 4.0 strategy that all companies are trying to embrace, which is basically about full digitization of their entire supply chain.
Yeah. I don't know if you're looking at the chat.
No.
Richie says, crap, where did it go? Oh, all right. He says, okay, you opened my eyes, Trev, and I see where it would have been better spent regarding the money that or the LUNC that he burned. You know, on one hand, Richie, I'm very happy that you're the kind of person who is able to look at someone else's perspective and let it roll around in your brain a little while, and you're not above maybe changing your mind on something if somebody points something out to you. So I feel good about that. But then on the other hand, I feel like I just told some kid that there is no Santa Claus. So I'm not sure.
I told my son that long ago. Don't feel bad about that. Santa Claus doesn't exist. He was made up by Coca-Cola.
All right. I agree. What's being said, burning supply isn't the best way to get value. We need to get LUNC used via utility, which will quickly burn the massive supply down. I mean, if we get the right utility, I guess that's the idea. All right. I want to go to the last one here just to get through this, and then we'll see where we go from there. So the last one was shorten undelegate period. And honestly, that's not even really something we can do, is it?
Well, we can. I
Yeah.
mean, we discussed it in the space the other day. I mean, I personally think that it would make sense to make an instant undelegate option at a 5% fee, and that 5% would go to the community pool. Because here's the thing: when I was doing a lot of trading prior to investing in Terra, where I lost most of my initial monopoly money in that investment, I was generating $30 million worth of volume every month on Bitfinex. I was trading easily $500,000 or more per day in value. And for me, paying 5% on whatever amount of volume that I'm, taking out of the delegation space is not a big problem if I see a trade opportunity that can give me a, 10% return, for instance. So I think it's worth examining. I think if we, want to embrace the thoughts of quantitative tightening, we have to, have some sort of cost associated with instant undelegation. Otherwise, the system becomes exploitable for people with a lot of money. But overall, I think that's the kind of options we should be looking at. I don't think necessarily we should try to reduce it from 21 days. I'm actually probably more in the realm that the delegation time should probably be increased to basically freeze more of the M2 supply, but at the same time, maybe also increase the rewards a bit for that longer lockup, right? It's basically like giving the chain a longer term loan and then allowing the people giving that loan away to instantly revoke it at a cost.
All right. Well, I mean, it's news to me that we can do it, because I had heard from a few people that we couldn't. As a matter of fact, one of the comments in underneath here says, just so you know, the undelegation period is an attribute of the underlying Cosmos chain, and we can't change that. I wish people would stop asking about it. I had heard that from somebody else before too, so I was under the impression that we could not change it.
Well, I mean, we've already modified the baseline Cosmos SDK in certain parts. It's not impossible to extend the functionality or even alter it.
Okay. All right. Well, good to know. All right. So just to bounce over here real quick, I agree with what's being said. All right, we already did that. Have been part of the live streams. Really good bunch they are, Richie. I saw somewhere someone wanted to make a sort of music app which would use Lunk, and it became popular. If became popular, would be a really good way to use Lunk. I've got a boombox that I can sell you.
Yeah.
And, I'd rather be in a token with 6 trillion than 600 trillion. I mean, I don't, Shiba Inu, is that what we're talking about? And Richie sent me another super chat simply to say, what? No Santa? I'm done. You might be Santa Claus to me, Richie. You keep sending these super chats. And Georgie says that could be done with a liquid stake protocol, I think, on L2. I guess talking about what we were just, I don't know. All right. Anyway, I think I am going to call it a night. Hopefully your son is coming home soon. Do you worry about him when he's out this late?
He was sleeping at his girlfriend, so and
okay.
I got a text message an hour and a half ago from his mom that they had arrived at her place to sleep, so I know he's safe and sound.
All right,
But
good.
yes, I do worry about him. I am the parent in his life that constantly calls him in the weekend when he's out. I basically check up on him every second hour or something like that. And
Yeah.
And then I berate him when he doesn't pick up the phone when he gets home the next day, because my father was not that good at giving me some structure and discipline. So I try to do that with my son.
Yeah. My youngest is 22, and I'm still a little bit of a nervous wreck if I haven't, because he's kind of a homebody. He doesn't go out much, but he does have some friends that he's had since school, since elementary school. And so he goes to the next state to go hang with them. I'd still get nervous when, and I'll ask him, I try to stop from asking him, what time you're going to be home or whatever. I mean, he's a man at this point. I shouldn't be asking him those questions.
My son straight up told me the other day, he was like, Dad, you gotta stop hugging me. That's my girlfriend's responsibility now. And it's like, okay, fair enough, you win.
Yeah.
I think it's really more me than him. He's he's an intelligent kid ever since preschool. He's been very well behaved when he's around others. I've always gotten good feedback from other parents. He obviously acts out at home, but what kid doesn't do that?
Yeah, they all do.
So overall, I think when I analyze it, it's really just more me than him, and I think it's probably the same for you if you think about it.
Yeah, it's tough. Now, my fiance has a son about the same age. They're a matter of months apart. Hers is 23, mine is 22. We kind of compare notes, and it's amazing how everybody kind of goes through the same things with their kids. Sometimes you feel like you're the only one that's going through it, but we all go through the same stuff, So yeah,
I have this horrible analogy that being a parent is like having a dog, and if you've ever had a dog, you get into this point where you start hanging out with dog people, right? And if I look at my friends today, the friends I hang out with, they also have children, right? Because it's kind of like you have the same values. I'm not saying children are dogs. That's not the point I'm making here. I'm just saying that when you become a parent, your life changes. You realize that there are more important things in the world than yourself. And then you meet these other people who have come to the same sort of realization. And
Right.
that just creates a natural synergy that tends to make you just group up with these. So yeah, I guess it's just how it is, right? We're not that different, even though we all like to think we are. And then I think that's also worth keeping in mind once in a while.
Yeah, people on different parts of the world, like you and I are, we still share that same commonality where we all go through these things with our kids, with our loved ones. There's just a lot of similarities. So
well, it's
something
what
to
it means to
celebrate.
be human, right? It's the human condition, and we should celebrate it. It's the, you know, I wouldn't change who I am or the world I live in for anything, because I think, you know, it's definitely, there are things that could be better, but by and large, if we look at where our civilization is right now, we've never had it better than now, right? So we're doing pretty okay. And if we can overcome the next obstacles of becoming this interplanetary species and avoid Elon Musk crowning himself Emperor of Mars, then I think, you know, we're in a good trajectory to solve our resource problems. And I think that will solve the inflation issue. And then our economic growth will start growing again and basically bring civilization to the next level, right? Because we all today have certain basic things, but all of that is because of this growth that is underpinned by our sort of, you could say, scientific advances over the last maybe 100 years or something like that. And this is only going to keep accelerating. So it's going to be a wild ride, and we just have to try to hold on.
Yep, I got you. All right, last question. What do you think of the beard? What do you think?
Of what?
The beard, my beard. Been growing this thing for months now.
You look like Santa.
Yeah.
You just need the costume and you're ready to go. No, I think it's cool.
I bought my sister a black Santa one year. She puts it on her mantle every year. It's funny.
Yeah.
All right, brother.
I had something like that a few years back, but it was too much work to keep it maintained. So now I just shave it all off once in a while.
Oh, the beard you meant. I thought you meant you had a black Santa.
No. None of that.
This is the longest I've ever let it get. I usually shave it because it gets to a point where it's itchy, and then I shave it off. But I powered through and I got through the itchy phase, and now I'm in the distinguished gentleman phase where I can stroke it like this. And when I'm listening to you tech guys, I can feel like I'm just as smart as you.
All you need now is like a pipe or something, and then you really look smart.
Next time we talk, I'm gonna have a pipe. You shouldn't even have said that.
I'm looking forward to that, but I'm gonna tap out now. I'm getting too tired. So thanks,
all right, brother. Me too.
A great one, and have a good evening.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Ciao.
Ciao. All right, everybody in the chat, thank you guys very much for being here. Crypto Dream, I just saw you come in. We've been here for 2.5 hours, bro. You just got in now. Anyway, thanks a lot. Hit the like button for me if you haven't done so on your way out. If you're not subscribed to the channel, and I think everybody that I see here is subscribed. Everybody that I see here are members, thanks to Richie. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for just having a good time and being up in here and hanging with me for like 2.5 hours. You guys are awesome. And, you know, it's really why I kind of do this. So I will talk to you all very, very soon. Have yourselves a great night, day, afternoon, wherever it is that you are in the world. But we'll talk again soon. All right. Ciao.